welcome to the Rehumanization Station. I am your collaborator, Christopher Jones, aka Dr. X, and this podcast is an extension to my Flippin' and Vibin' brand, where vibers seek to transform narratives in society, education, and sport. Today is our collaborative praxis series where we have a communal viber named Shane McHugh. Shane, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Shane is a college administration coordinator and a co-chair of Durham University LGBT plus staff and postgraduate network. Shane has been at Aidan's College in Durham University since 2019, where he took on the role of student support administrator. And from his past experience in the private accommodation industry and youth provision, Shane has a wide range of experience, interpersonal skills, and knowledge surrounding student issues and how to overcome them. Shane has won and been nominated for various awards from the National Youth Agency, and by the age of 19, Shane founded a regional young people's charity partnership, which collected gift packages, and within its foundation year, over 19,000 gift packages were made and donated to young people across the region. Wow. The scheme is still successfully running today. With these skills, he has been able to break barriers within communities, implement change, and ensure every young person or student has the opportunity to shine, which he continues to bring to Aidan's College and in the wider world. Okay. It's going to be an exciting episode today, right?
Uh-huh.
So to start, if our listeners know, our Viber audience knows that this is a part of the show where we just vibe and allow our listeners to get an idea, I'd say, of your background and personal interests, right? So Shane, just tell us, what's your story? Tell us a bit about yourself, your birthplace, your family, friends.
Yeah, of course. So obviously my name is Shane.
Mm-hmm.
I relocated. So originally I'm from the other side of the Pennines in Lancashire, from a little town, or some would say a big town now, called Blackburn. They're quite notorious of taking wonderful Alan Shearer from Newcastle United. So we even have names that are street names that are named after him because he's that sacrilegious over there.
Oh, okay.
I lived there for most of my life and then relocated to the northeast for a different opportunity and just to try and broaden my horizons. Throughout my time there, growing up was difficult, I would say. We're living on the breadline most of the time, and yeah, it was just a different environment to what you see in the world today, especially, and that was only 30 odd years ago. It's not like it was so long ago. Growing up was different, I would say.
Different in what way?
So I came, I would say a majority of my life of being a child was a single parent household. So before, I've got one sibling, and when he was born, I was quite an older child, actually. So I was 8 years old. And then, unfortunately, my mum's and dad's relationship broke down shortly after that. And then my mum sort of looked after us since then. So yeah, I think it was difficult growing up in terms of just dynamics and things like that, and going to a school, especially where being in a single parent household wasn't really known at the time. So quite a lot of people was obviously married and being different, I would say, through talents. From my personal talents, I would say sometimes you would get a little bit picked on. So I would say as a young kid, I was quite arty, quite musical, quite talented in that respect, which was very different to probably stereotypical guys that just like sports and like to goof about in class. I wasn't really good in terms of academics, but it was more so the physicalities of getting out in the classroom, of looking at art, looking at music, drama, things like that, that would be my inspiration and sort of got me through my education.
Okay. And when you say like the arts, is that so? How did you navigate that whole experience, like with everything, like academic? I mean, your school, educational spaces, and then in the wider community and at home. Yeah.
So I would say the younger part of my life, so before going to high school, it was quite easy really because respectively you had my family unit that was very sort of how can I put it? I would say they was very dearing in terms of wanting me to do what I wanted to do. So they would encourage me to actually pursue them kind of goals. And with the teaching staff around you, they would really help in terms of trying to develop them skills. So from there, especially again, like I said, in primary school, when it came to music, I was quite musically talented. I was headhunted at one point, which is not a claim to fame, and I hate the claim. But I actually sang on, TV. It was part of an orchestra, by the way, but it was for our local cathedral that was in like a battle of the sort of choirs.
Okay, what did y'all sing? That's cool. What did y'all sing?
We sang like the worst song possible, and I can't remember it because there were so many songs that we had to sing that were awful. But but I won't say it's a claim to fame, but it really drove me to be a person that within my shell, I'm really sort of, I would say, antisocial. I stay in my home when I'm out of work or not with friends. I'm really, I would say, an isolated person that's fine being isolated. So it's not a case of being like, oh, a hermit, but I would rather just like isolate myself to just chill. But when I'm out, I think by developing that experience of being in front of an audience, being in front of a crowd, it sort of developed me that I had to push my boundaries every single time when it was either in the workplace, going to speak to people in the community, or even just making friends. So I think that helped boost my confidence. But as soon as I was out of that environment, I would then be very shy, quiet, timid.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. So, wow. So, okay. So you're a singer. You love artistry, right? And I guess some of your lived experiences and just putting yourself out there gave you a bit more confidence. What you would say? Or...
Yeah. I would say it would. I think obviously when you grow up and everyone has a different sort of background when they grow up in general, and it depends on how they got on at school, if they were popular, if they're not popular. But I think for me it was a case that even though I didn't have lots of friends that were involved in music, and maybe yes you got picked on because you was this music geek, so to speak, but I think in essence people was broadened to, I wouldn't say be open to it or accepting of it. It would be a case that, oh yeah, Shane just does that, but we would never speak about it as friends. So it was peculiar. Okay.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We can expand on that though. So it's like, so what activities bring you peace, love, and happiness? We can kind of expand on your singing. Like, what kind of genre do you like to sing or listen to?
So I love to listen to all types of music, and I think from a young age, especially growing up around my parents, it wasn't just one genre of music because they were both eclectic in terms of their styles. So my dad really loves like blues, jazz, soft rock, where my mum really loves things like pop, hard rock. So it's two different genres altogether. So I think over the course of growing up, I've been able to broaden my horizons in terms of listening to different types of music. Now I've come to a stage where I don't mind anything. So as long as it's got an all right beat, you can tap your foot to it, you can go. So yeah.
That sounds like you saying, so you just have appreciation for just any genre, really. That's good. I'm similar in a way. I have my favorites, but yeah, it's interesting how like some of your experiences, I kind of resonate with me a little bit, because I can definitely see how when I was growing up, I was very, I was kind of similar. Like even though I had a twin where I was around each other, I did like being kind of like, I was very shy. I'd say maybe it's a little different. I was a little shy, but I was an athlete. So I was used to playing in front of hundreds or thousands of people, and I was okay with that. I was good with that, but I like to be in my own little space with other people, right? Yeah. But then I guess with that, though, there are differences within people's experiences, right? And I'm sure we'll get into more of that. And what would you consider like some of your most challenging moments, and how have you navigated them?
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the most challenging moments of my life probably would have been when my dad and mum split up. It was probably a very difficult time for me in that respect, because it was the last year of primary school before I went to high school. It was very different because one day my dad was there, the next he was gone, and then within the space of a few months he had a total new family. So it was very peculiar, and at the time it was sort of not a thing that I would have thought as a child would have ever happened. And when I would look back at it now and speak to both of my parents about it, it was a case of it was there for a long time. It was just never shown. And it was just something that was happening in the background, which is peculiar because you would think you would pick up on them things as a child, but you just never did. So I think that was one of the hardest times. And I think the reason why it was hard was obviously you don't have that support unit around you. But furthermore, because I had a very young brother as well, that was only, I would say, 13, 14 months old at the time when that happened. And my mum was really struggling throughout her pregnancy with that. She went into a steep depression. So it was a case that as a young child still, I would then have to be relied upon to look after my brother as well at the same time. And try to raise him in some way, shape or form, whilst my mother was basically inexistent but still present within our family home, but not physically attached to us. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And when you mentioned about, I guess that could be, makes sense. Okay. If people don't know, me and Shane and I worked together here at the college. I was the assistant principal at St. Aidan's last year. So I know Shane a little bit, right? But also, if those are challenging moments. So if you feel like you had to play like a guardian type role, right? Who then is someone who was influential in your life?
I think for me, the influence, that is a tricky one. I would say someone that, especially through that time, that got me through was my music teacher, because that was the only type of release where I could be still a child, still growing and learning, but also be able to adapt in terms of being more confident, not showing people that, yes, I was going through pain at the time, but putting a face on in a way where I could express that through music instead of expressing it by being naughty or acting in a behaviour that shouldn't be allowed in school, etc. So I think by having them conversations with my music teacher at the time sort of helped me through that. So I would say they're borderline. Yeah, I would say that they are sort of there in your life and you do look up to them in a way. But again, I don't know, because I would say that throughout my life and even now, I don't really look up to anyone. There's no one that I think or I aspire to be them, because I would rather just be my own person. And then for someone or people to think, you know what, this guy's done great in his life. I won't aspire to be him because he's done out of his life, but in term, maybe take on some of them core values might enhance them further.
Okay, well, okay, thank you. And you talked, so would you want to give your music teacher a shout out? Do you remember?
Yeah. So she was called Mrs. Kirby.
Mrs. Kirby, if you're out there.
And I remember, the other reason why I remember her so much is I was doing this play and it was the last year of primary school. And it was so peculiar, and she used to write all the plays and the scripts for the school, and she used to put like random jokes in, and at the time we would never get them as children, but she would used to drive a Hyundai, and everyone at the time used to hate them, so she put that in, and that was like one of my strap lines, and I was like, why is people laughing? But now I understand.
Okay, wow. Okay, that's cool though. Is there anybody else or anything else other interests that you have outside of music?
Yeah. So I think outside of music, I think it's, for me, I wouldn't say knowledge is valuable, but I think life experience in terms of looking at a positive perspective on different situations. So after high school, I went to college and did something totally random there for 3 years. I never went into, but within that time, and it was basically a travel and tourism course, and it was looking at how to utilize travel facilities and stuff like that, which was very different. But the thing that captured my eye the most was looking at different cultures and religions. And I think for me, what I tried to do through that stage was think, right, okay, we live in a town that is known in the UK for being, it's quite a big area, but if you literally draw a line through the middle of it, going through the town centre, there would be one half that was predominantly white, and it was all white. And then
Okay.
the other side of the town would be lots of varieties of ethnic minority people. And one of the things that I was looking through at that time, because our college was in the middle, so you would get a collection of different people there. And it was a case of being like, how and why do these people not sort of integrate into society as a whole? So they stay in their community, and that's their community. That's what they know. So one of my things that I wanted to do, especially over my course, and something that I looked into, was looking at the different values that people had in terms of religions, ethnicities, and to try and look at diversity. And then obviously after that, that's when I started to move into charity work, which worked hand in hand with different communities.
Okay, we're gonna get into that actually right now, because we're gonna let's now we will get more into, like, you know, your work and how you flip the script to traditional narratives, right? Within it, I've had a chance to get to know you as a colleague in the wider community work that you do, and much of your work is around, you know, breaking barriers and being inclusive collectively. And so for our Viber audience and us too, let's flip the individualist script, shall we?
Yeah.
So when I say individualism, I'm meaning that's like a patriarchal principle. So it's individualism is like me before we, and knowing you and getting to know you and seeing the work that you do, you're more about collectivism, right? And that is we before me, right?
Yeah.
The polar opposite to individualism. So what are your perceptions of traditional narratives in the work that you do? You want to just kind of highlight that?
Yeah, of course. So I think traditionally, I think people would look, I don't know, as I've come to a stumbling block here.
That's okay. We got time. Just have a think.
I think in terms of the traditional values,
or something that is normative that kind of needs some type of challenging or transforming.
I think it depends in what type of context, to be totally honest. And if it's looking in, say, my day-to-day life now, within the job that I do now, I think it's probably a lot different, I would say, as in, this is what's on paper, and this is what people follow, and these are the sort of values of what we do. But then, as an individual, some of them don't always align to you, or you have to look at how you can critique them to change them. So then you can actually say, yes, you're doing X, Y, and Z, but in actual fact, you are twisting them a little bit in terms of making them more positive. So instead of having sort of a key duty role within whatever you're doing, is to try and look at it as a more of a broader perspective and seeing how it can be, for me, more inclusive to people. Because I think that's one of the things of my just core values, is looking at inclusivity. And I think over the years, it's been adaptable to that inclusivity, is learning about, especially in particular, cultures as in total, and how a perception of that culture is put out, say, in UK media, in your local family, or even in your local area. And actually thinking, right, okay, some people have said this, but what does that actually mean? And it's actually trying to think about their meanings a bit further, but also getting someone from that community or someone that physically believes that to explain that further, to understand it.
Oh wow, okay, that's a great way of putting it. So basically, you're saying there's a set of values, right, within the workplace, and you look at those values, critique those values, and try to enhance them in a positive fashion, right? Okay, and then how would you do that in particular with some of the networks that you're a part of?
Yeah, of course. So one of the key things, and especially working at a university, it's like this, I would say, it's always adaptable, I would say, over time. So it does a legacy that's there, that they feel, I don't know who they is, but this entity feels that it's on a strong foundation because it's over 100 years old. But in actual fact, if we went back 100 years ago, it wouldn't be like this.
Right.
So I think for me, especially when it comes to the networks that I'm involved in and try to push forward for some of the community, is to actually look at change. And I think that's in a positive way. So say, for example, at the last year, I was heavily involved of actually restructuring how we get new people that are coming to the university in terms of staff and students, how they actually identify as a gender. So it's always been a case in lots of corporate places in the world that we have male, female, prefer not to say. That's it, done. Right. Which is fine in one respect. And people think, oh, yeah, well, we've done that because we put the prefer not to say. But if someone is strongly against that or has their gender, has realised what their gender is and wants to identify that, then we should be allowing that. It shouldn't be a space that we just click the other. Because another could be anything and it's not really classed as equal. And that's even just as a basic in terms of an application form. Right. So I think one of the key tasks last year was to look at them kind of questions. So it was around gender, it was around identity, it was around where they belong, really. So instead, again, another one is religious and beliefs. So quite a lot of the time, you'll just have, obviously, the major denominations of religion there. But why not broaden the horizons again with that? There's lots of different assets to the different denominations. Right. So why not include them on there? So then people don't have to then also think, oh, well, I'm part of this religion and I'm going to have to like write it on or just put other or just put, oh, well, yeah, I'm a Muslim and that's it. You know.
I hear what you're saying. So so basically like you flip the script in a way where the script is actually creating, I would say, marginalization in other category, right? So when we talk about protected characteristics and gender specifically, how when you just put male and female, then prefer not to say is actually a wide range of people that you're alienating, right? And that does create a sense of I would say separatism, like otherness, like you just said, and how is that going now within the spaces that you're in?
Yeah. So I think it is getting a lot better. And again, working in a university establishment, I think there's a certain level of understanding there, which has been able to adapt that, especially to students more so than staff, which again is something that I will be picking up very soon for our staff in particular. But for students, it's more broader. And from the feedback that I've informally received in terms of the application process, because I try not to, again, say, oh, well, did it work? Did it not work? Is that when students have actually applied for a place at Durham, they felt more inclusive because they feel that the university has actually thought about them. And I think that's the key thing is if you feel more connected to somewhere because they put the time and energy to actually research things like gender identity and what it actually means to someone, then I think that develops that relationship straight away. Even if it's, I know it sounds weird because it's just a piece of paper or it's just an application form, but if you think you've got that sense of belonging just by having, say, your gender there that you can actually pick from, people think, right, okay, maybe this kind of establishment is on board with what I want to be as well. They understand me or they recognize me. And I think recognition is the biggest thing, is if you're recognized, then you feel, right, okay, maybe this is going to be a safe place that I can go to. Right. It might not be in reality in some cases. I can't say, come to this university because we're absolutely amazing at everything. But again, it just gives you that sense of belonging where you feel like, right, okay, I could be safe there, and you feel more impressed that people are knowledgeable about that without actually being knowledgeable about that. Right, okay. But I think that's the reverse to that, though.
Okay.
I do say that there is a reverse to that because obviously by developing forms and softwares and technologies where we can say we're more inclusive on a piece of paper, we then have to, again, like you said, flip the script in a way of actually becoming it. It's okay of actually putting that into a policy or writing that somewhere and people feeling that. But then if they're actually living and breathing it and it's not that, then we're still doing something wrong.
So basically, like, there's layers to inclusivity, right?
Yeah.
And it's about that's how you can challenge policy. But then you mentioned about how that recognition can make students feel included. Since you've been working here, I guess you started in 2019.
Yeah.
Has there been a shift, or has there not been a shift? Have you seen any type of transformative change when it comes to that?
Yeah, I would say not within a wider university level. I would say more of a local level. There's been a shift in that, and I think it depends again within the context. So within my day-to-day role, I've seen a massive shift in that, and that's just because of the students that you physically work with. But when it's eye-opening sometimes, because I do try to go to lots of different lectures that are held at different places to try and see if some of the work that we're doing in the background is actually working for different people, or if it's literally just here at a Rainbow College that it's becoming a different shift of people, a different mentality, a different perspective of people that are actually coming in. And I do see it in little pockets, but I think there's still masses of work to be done. And it just, again, I think it's a case of, number one, time and money, but also who actually wants to get involved and invest in it. And again, if it's just one of them tricky things, I would say, as a university, as a whole, is, yes, we can tick the box, but are we going to do anything about it? And I think that's one of the bugbearers, especially speaking to different networks that have different agendas and different things that they want to bring forward. And I think that's probably the consistent of annoyance, I would say, because we are quick enough to say, as a university, we really want to do this, but we take a long time to do it.
Okay. So I've learned that about, like, sometimes about being, just in general when it comes to this work, organizations tend to be reactive rather than proactive at times, right?
Yeah.
And you also mentioned the Rainbow College. So for our listeners, Aidan's Durham University is a collegiate system.
Yeah.
There's 17 colleges?
Yes,
There's 17 colleges, and say Aidan's is a college, right? That Shane works at, and I used to work at as well. And hope soon in the future, maybe. But Aidan specifically is also the Rainbow College, right? So the rainbow is our symbol.
Yeah.
Right? And how do you feel students have responded to that? Because I've worked here as well, so I do know a little bit, but if you can kind of shed light to our audience about how students react to it.
Of course. I think, again, since I've been working here, there's been a massive shift. So when I first started here, it was probably predominantly middle-class students that came. It was probably a college that they didn't really want to come to in the first instance. It was sort of lower on their list because there's a choice system for Durham. But when they actually got here, it was a change of, or I would say, broaden their horizons in terms of perspective. So I won't say our ethos would totally change people's minds about what they wanted to get out of it, but I think they would be more susceptible to wanting to change or broaden their horizons. So I would say right at the start, it was very different to where we are now. And I think from the in-depth and intense work we've done as a staff community to try and evolve that by integrating different community partners within the college itself has sort of broadened that horizon. So say, for example, this academic year, and it's an example of fact, I would say, is we've gone from having, and again, I don't like to brag about it, but we've gone from having, say, 2 students that have identified as one gender, and by the end of the academia, they've identified as a different gender. So they've been transitioning through that process, where when I first started, we only had 1 student that did that, which is totally fine. But this academic year, I think from the intense work that we've done to try and ensure that we are inclusive in terms of being part of the rainbow, we are diverse, and we do strive for people to have a safe environment. We've been able to get people that are studying at Durham once again, but have actually chosen us as the first choice college. They come from an LGBTQIA plus background, and they really want to be here. So it's not a case that We have students that maybe didn't want to be here, but they were from that community. We have students that are physically want to be here and they are from that community because they are in line with the values that we want to enhance in people. So I think that's really been sort of a solitary win for us in a way, as a staff community. And I think it's just something that we have to grow on now and really sort of enhance their experience, their expectations of what they want from this community and try to really implement that. So yes, we say that we're doing one thing, but we have to act upon that as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And if we can expand, I have a few other questions around this. So if we can expand on this, so obviously those are the positive sides, right? But there are also perceptions around, let's say, when people come to visit and you have parents who make certain comments and kind of, and students as well may have a misinterpretation of what the college actually stands for, right?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that a bit? Or
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the things, which I wouldn't say is totally positive, is because for the last 2 years especially, with every involvement of trying to remarket and rebrand our college in particular in terms of being rainbow, which has been, a decade old now, but it's really trying to enhance that on social media. There is sometimes, I would say, minor negatives from that, where people would think that because we strive and we have a strap line of the Rainbow College, we are exclusive instead of being inclusive, and that means exclusivity for people from an LGBTQIA plus background, or they are a little bit different, and maybe that the things that we say that we do, we don't follow through. And again, from having them kind of perspectives, people will then put us more lower in rank because they feel like, right, okay, my son, my daughter really wants to come to Aidan's, say, for example, because we have a lot of students out here that their parents are alumni because they like to come to Aidan's as well. But because they're not aligned to the Rainbow College, they feel that they can't. So then they get segregated or they feel not inclusive. And I think maybe, again, it's something that we need to do as a community to shape or change or adapt in terms of saying, and this is something that I do openly say, is yes, we are known as being the Rainbow College and we are the Rainbow College, but it's not a case of we're exclusive when, we're not all gays, lesbians and trans walking around here. We're much more than that. And for us, especially shaping throughout this academic year, it's more being the rainbow is a symbol of inclusivity, not a particular community. So we have multiple different colours within the world. So we're, I would say, ground zero is in terms of a hub for Durham University to enhance them experiences there, no matter what background you come from, no matter where in the world you come from. We hope that when you come here, it's more like home. So I think over this academic year, that's something that we've been really trying to change in terms of the perspective that we are literally just here as an exclusive college for anyone that is not straight.
It's like the Black Lives Matter rhetoric. It's like, oh, when people want to say all lives matter, but I mean, we're not saying that all lives don't matter, right?
No.
It's very similar in a way. And so how many students are here? I'm sure you have how many students does Aidan's have?
Yeah, so for Aidan's living in college, it's 350 odd students per year, and every single year we get new students. For a full list of students, or I would say everyone that's studying, that's part of Aidan's, is just shy of 1,400.
Okay. You said 1,400?
Yeah.
Okay. And then that sounds amazing. And like you said, you're trying to push that you're allowing. It sounds like you're allowing students to be their authentic selves, right? When they come here, and the rainbow in itself is just a way to show that you want students to be their authentic selves, and it's more about loving and being communal, right? That's kind of back to what we talked about.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite funny, this, in a way, and it's like a bit off subject, but someone once said to me, when I went to an LGBT forum, that when they was way back when, there was an older person, but when they were way back when, they used to go out on Saturday night and they would look for pubs and clubs that would have a little tiny rainbow flag, and it would be tiny over the door, and that would mean that they were friendly or approachable pubs where you wouldn't go in and get kicked out for being homosexual. So they would look around for this. So for me, I always think that, and the reason why they went there is because they said it was inclusive. It was inclusive to the community. It was just inclusive to them. So when I actually think about that now, if us having the Rainbow College, and it's more so the symbol of a rainbow, showing the inclusivity, if that's inclusive to one community, then I would hope that the rainbow as a rainbow would be inclusive when people see it to everyone. It's not just a case of, yes, I have to be any type of different from being heterosexual. It is a case of inclusivity, and I think that's probably what we need to broaden our perspective in when it comes to our image. But I think it's a case that also within our students, it's not a case that, yeah, I'm at the Rainbow College, but I'm heterosexual. It's not that case. It's more of, I'm at the Rainbow College because it's an inclusive college / environment where I can just be myself.
Got you. Equity, diversity, inclusion, and love, right? That's why EDIL is what I like to preach, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So within, like, we talked about all your work and things that you're doing, talk about the college, right? Thank you for sharing that. Could you share a particular moment that you consider like a turning point in the work that you do?
Yeah. I think a particular moment, and again, this is off a past experience before working now, and I think it's what's made me grow, I would say, as an individual and wanting to learn more in particular. So way back when, before I moved into the Northeast, I was working for this youth charity at the time where they actually had 95% of people that are from an ethnic minority background that came. It was a youth hub, and it was an environment where they could chat with their friends, but also try to develop communication skills in general. So unfortunately, due to stigmatization, harsh rules within their home environment, it wasn't a case that young people from that kind of background could actually go out into the community, just be friends, goof about with their friends. It was more looking at studying. It's more looking at making sure that you're doing this certain amount of prayers every single day. It wasn't a case of looking at being inclusive or going out, doing things that generally young people do, making small mistakes that you do make. So a part of that was actually looking at seeing if we could bring different types of religions together and seeing how they actually are very similar, even though they are very different, but they have the same sort of core values there as a religious belief. And as part of that was one of the things that changed it, and I will come to the point quick because I go on tangents quite quickly, but one of the key things was I was actually starting a forum with 3 different religions there. So there was a rabbi there, there was a priest there, and there was oh man.
So a rabbi, a
priest, and I've totally forgot what the official name is now, and I don't want to be like, oh.
It's okay.
There was a rabbi, a priest, and
chaplain or
no, I forgot what the name is for.
We know there's 3 different types of.
Okay, we'll go with that. Sorry,
that's all right. There's 3.
So there's 3 different types of religious leaders there, and basically, one of the questions was from the young people is, what are their strong feelings on homosexuality? Now, especially with the group of students that we were working with, they were mostly from a Muslim background. Some of them was totally closeted because obviously it's very, it's very under the carpet when it comes to that particular type of group of people at the moment, or way back when I worked in there. So that question came up, and they said, would you tell the person that, sorry, we can't have you here, or we don't believe in you being homosexual, there isn't a place for you here within the house of where you worship. Mm-hmm. So we came, and obviously the Christian leader was very neutral in that case, which was totally fine, which was expected. The rabbi, again, was very sort of, well, we will look at the right paths and guidance and blah, blah, blah. But the Islamic leader was actually really eye-opening in a way, because he said, at the end of the day, they're a person that has been born into this religion. They're a person there by faith, and yes, we understand that being homosexual is haram, and we can't officially allow that, but equally, they shouldn't then have to justify, have to hide, or even purgate themselves of thinking, I'm a bad person. Okay. At the end of the day, they are from our community. We should be supporting them, not trying to ostracize them. And for me at that point, it was very eye-opening, because I was like, how can a religious leader actually say something like that, in terms of being like, no, these are the rules and these are the rules, and people generally from that background stick to the rules. So how can they have a different perspective? And I think that sort of first opened my eyes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So, and when was this? This was... yeah, sorry, I didn't get to that, did I? That was okay.
So this was when I was 21, so it's quite a while ago. And from there, I think it was a case of me then looking at, right, okay, how can that sort of continue in society? So one of the things that I then started to strive to do was look at different rights that people had, and also how you can become more of an activist in your community to say, not quote people, but to say to people, right, okay, yes, you're going through a very hard time and you need support with that. So how can we look at them particular needs? And everyone's needs are very different, but how can we look at them needs and try to help as much as we can? Okay. Which then, from there, I did lots of different projects within the local community to actually break down stereotypes and boundaries when it came to things like radicalization, when it came to homophobic abuse, when it came to stereotypical types of people being gay in general, and the way they act, and people thinking that potentially they're perverts, etc. And it was actually going out into them communities and talking about different scenarios and situations that people can find themselves in, and how they identify that in that one instance, but when they actually think about it, it's totally different. So one of the things that with the project was to try and develop them skills where people could broaden their horizons when it came to thinking of things, instead of automatically perceiving, oh, this is a guy that looks feminine, is gay, I'm not going to speak to him, or this person is wearing a hijab, so, they're a terrorist. It's a case of looking at that person as a person more. So hopefully from doing that, it did change some perspectives. And again, it then comes back into my personal life of thinking, right, if people are always thinking that in that sort of mindset or a tunnel vision mentality where they know what they know and not able to broaden their horizons. If I'm able to learn some of that information, when it comes up in a conversation, you can bring that up, because it's a case of being informal, but it's also informally educating. And I think that's what one of the key things I strive to do. If I feel that someone may not need educating, because I'm not an educator, but if someone may want a different perspective it's good to have that perspective firsthand and then say, well, this is a different kind of perspective that you could have a look at.
Yeah, it's like a form of re-educating, right?
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, in what you said hit home when it comes to like flipping the script, because it's when we say, or if someone's too feminine or looks like a terrorist, what do we think of? Where does that stuff come from, right? It's traditionally from, I guess, a Western perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important to question where a lot of our beliefs come from, and I guess the normative values that we have, right? And with all that, how have you navigated your identity within these spaces?
So I think for me,
I didn't. Can you explain to the audience what you identify with?
I'm openly gay, engaged, happy as I am. I've been probably, I wouldn't say out, because I don't really believe in coming out. Like, if you're whatever you are, I don't think that you have to come out to people. You should, it's just you. So naturally, I had my first love when I was 19, and it wasn't a case that I was like, oh, mum, I'm gay, dad, I'm gay. It was just a case that it just happened, and that was it. Which, again, throughout my career and just life experience is very different to very different people. So it just depends on your family circumstance. But so that's how I generally identify. And I think when it comes to my values, beliefs, and also just how I look at the world, some people would say I have most of the time rose-tinted glasses in a perspective of being just very open, honest, and just looking for diversity. I've always been brought up where you don't look at a person because of the colour of their skin or how they act. They're just a person. It doesn't matter what colour, what background they come from. They're just a person, and that's how I was brought up. So I think that really rubs off in me in my day-to-day life, is that we should just look at people without looking at gendering them into a colour or even their gender or their belief. It should just be that they're just a person. Yes, we go through life where people are very nice, and we go through life where people are not so nice, but then you shouldn't have to think that because they were a different type of person or a person that wasn't the same as you, they are then different.
Normative.
Yes, because then you categorize them into being everyone is that person when they're not actually that person.
Yeah, and that goes back to what you mean by layers.
Yeah.
So what Shane's mentioned is like that is what Shane is saying is what we should aspire to be. But because of certain policies and certain things in place, the traditional normative narratives in place, which is why certain things we have to go through certain layers before we get to that.
Yeah.
The cherry on top, which is allowing people to be their authentic selves, right? But like you said earlier, it's about doing what we can and then trying to transform policies and change our ways of thinking, right? Which is very important. You mentioned you're engaged. You're getting married soon?
Yes, next year.
Next year, it's 2025. Yeah, 2025. Okay, I got you. Okay. All right. Well, this last question around this topic, but where do you see your work leaving like a lasting legacy and positively impacting others, I'd say?
Yeah, I would say positively impacting others or a lasting legacy. I wouldn't like to say I'm going to have a legacy because, I wouldn't like that. But I would say a positive impact would be that whoever I come across in all walks of life, I would hope that I have some sort of positive impact with them, whether that just be brief or whether that be that if I've identified something that they didn't know or they didn't once believe in or didn't even think about, if I change their perspective in any sort of way, say, or form, I think that would have helped. I wouldn't say that's a legacy, but I would just hope that someone would have that sort of positive impact. Yes, I can't say that, I'm an angel or anything like that, but I would say if at that one time they thought, you know what, actually, I had a conversation with Shane and he said this, and it actually like hit a nerve in a way, but in a positive way of thinking, actually, you know what, I had to step back and actually think about that as a perspective. And I think if I did that, as much as possible throughout my whole life, hopefully people can then use that example to pass on to someone, and then it just grows in that way. And I think it's, when you think about transformative things that have happened through the entirety of history, it always starts with someone actually thinking about something a little bit differently and how to overcome something as well at the same time. And it could be something personal to them, or it could be something that's much wider.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. See the communal viber with us today. The communal viber. So it's about paying it forward, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very important. Thank you for that. And we're gonna get to now to the concluding part of this show, where Shane will offer us insight around rehumanization. Okay. So if you could reflect on your journey thus far, what do you know now that you wish you knew before?
Ooh. Does the lottery count?
Does a lottery.
No, I'm just joking. I think for me, one thing I know now that I wish I had before, I think it would be
that you knew before. Sorry.
That I knew before. I think, I don't know, Chris. I think. Let me
just go with the flow. Yeah, have a think about it.
Let me have a think on it in a minute. I'm really unsure. I think
that's okay. Well, we talked about your life, your lived experiences, early education, how you were as a person, what influenced you, who influenced you, what you're doing now, the great work you're doing now. Within that, has there, and with the work you do with the college as well. So within that, is there anything that you can think of, just within that journey, that you wish you knew then? I mean, that's what you know now that you wish you knew then. Like, say for instance, if you did something or you went through something, you know it now, but you didn't know it back then. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, you did mention about your previous experience when you were 21 and that shifting. So that is an answer as well, if you want to stick to that one, or if you have something else.
No, I think for me it would be something that I didn't know way back when, or when I was growing up, was to just be yourself. And I think now that I know that, I'm comfortable with myself. I can, as growing up, you always wanted to fit into different groups. You always wanted to be in the box in a way of being like, yes, I'm, sporty, or I'm music. I'm very musically talented, but again, it's not looking at trying to fit in them core boxes or trying to tick them off your list as, yes, I'm a good person because I'm doing this. It's just being who you are and just being open to that. And I think throughout my life, I stress myself out in terms of just my identity as a whole. And I think now when I look back on it, I'm so comfortable with my identity that it's a case of, why did I ever stress out about it? Because it's not changed anything. Okay. So probably knowing that as a young person would have probably helped me through times of crisis when I was really struggling with identity in general. But I think, again, the one thing I would know, what I would love to have known back then would have been that everything will be all right. It'll be okay. So no matter what happens and how you perceive the world or how you want to change the world for you, a variety of reasons, it will be okay anyway. Just be confident in yourself and have that confidence to strive in what you do.
Okay, wow. See, you do know. You do know, right? Wow. Okay, that was okay. Wow. Thank you for that. So what you're saying is just allowing yourself to be, just trying to, because we do find ourselves, right? But it's more about not having these cliquey vibes where we feel like we have to be in a specific group to want to be included in it, right? Is that kind of what it is? Or?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Those are great points though. But then I guess, at the same time, certain experiences do shape you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to get to our final question. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Hopefully.
What does rehumanization look like to you?
I think rehumanization probably looks very broad, I would say. So I would say
Even hard to say.
I can't even say it now.
Rehumanization, y'all. Let's get it. It's okay.
I would say it's very broad, and again, it's very cliche to say this, but if we were whole, looking out in the world, and we were looking, say, through a rainbow lens, that would be rehumanization. It's just a case of no one's an exact colour, no one's an exact symbol, and no one really belongs to anyone but belongs to everyone.
Okay.
And I think if we all give a bit more love in our lives in terms of broadening our horizons and speaking to someone potentially that we never knew that we could ever speak to, I think that would be a quick way to probably rehumanize a lot of people on a very quick and easy scale. And it's not a case of, oh gosh, I've got to go out of my comfort zones. It's a case of just being ready and open to have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And that's why I really use having a rainbow lens in a way, because there's no real colour there. It doesn't identify as just one colour. It's multiple of colours. And I think, yeah, maybe that's...
Wow, what was that quote? That was you said being able to... It's not about belonging to anyone. It's about being with everyone.
Yeah, it's not a case of belonging with just one person. It's belonging with everyone. Everyone's inclusive.
Love
and
that.
I think if you have that kind of mentality in your life, for me, I would say, and this is just my opinion, but I think you would be more open to different perspectives, different ways and paths that follow you, because you've got that perspective to be at one with everyone instead of just being with one person, in terms of just who you mix with, who you identify with. And also, if you're open to that, it's going to give you that life development in a way where you'll come across a situation in the future. I feel that you'll be able to tackle that situation a lot more better, but with good understanding, instead of thinking, oh, I could say something wrong here, or I could do something wrong here, or my actions might be a severe consequence to someone. Just having them conversations when you're not in them kind of intense situations will help you.
Okay, so a rainbow lens is underpinned by not belonging to anyone, but being open to everyone.
Yeah.
And belonging to everyone. Wow. Thank you. See, you got it, man. Thank you. Now, thank you for joining me today. Is there anything that you want to talk about that you haven't mentioned yet, or?
No, I don't think so. I think the only thing that I would say to people, again, is just don't be too ambitious with trying to change the world in a respect. I would say just be more open, and that'll come to you like it did to me. Mm-hmm. I was open to wanting to know different things, and it weren't a case of me wanting to learn them or having to learn them in depth to change or train or whatever quite a lot of people say that they have to do. It's not a case of that. It's free flowing, and if you're more just open, then I think you will be able to adapt and develop. And it's a case of people say, yes, we adapt to change, but it's embracing that change as well.
Okay. So, yeah. I always like to say that you got to think about life as being a tadpole in a big ocean. Mm-hmm. Right? There's so many different things that are happening that we are unaware of, and it's good to be open. And but thank you for that. Is there any social media handles or platforms that people can follow you on?
There isn't. No.
No. Oh, nothing.
No.
So how can people reach out to you?
I don't know.
You can go on Say Aidan's university website.
Yeah, you can
St.
go.
College.
Yeah, you can go on there, or if you ever want to have a talk, feel free to drop us an email. I will leave it with Chris.
Or the networks. The networks.
Yeah, or via the networks. So sorry for people that are like, what? No social media. It was one of the things, one of the stages in my life where I was just like obsessed by social media. So what I decided to do was have like a sabbatical for 1 month. That just lasted for like 7 years. So, so I don't really have any social media now.
It's like back to your childhood, but with technology.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. Okay, so yeah, with your network, okay, you're on Twitter, right? And
yes, so we're on Twitter, which is DU LGBT Network, or the Insta page, which is DU LGBT plus.
All right. And yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for vibing with us today. And thank you, Shane, for coming.
Thank you.